Inshallah, so starting now after Ramadan, inshallah, we're going to change from this book, Riyadh al-Salihin, which we've been reading from after Isha, sometimes before Ramadan. We're going to have reflections from the Quran after Isha on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from me. And after Fajr, 5 days a week, we'll have reflections from Hadith. So Isha will be Quran and Fajr will be Hadith, inshallah. So the reflection from a verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks to Bani Israel, to the children of Israel, children of Israel. And He says, أَتَأْمُرُونَ النَّاسَ بِالْبِرِّ وَتَنْسَوْنَ أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَنْتُمْ تَتْلُونَ الْكِتَابَ أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. Do you command people to do good and you forget to do it yourselves, even though you're reciting the book? Don't you think? Don't you have any sense? So this is a very important critique of the children of Israel. But it's very important to understand who the children of Israel are. The Israelites, or Bani Israel, were the previous Muslim Ummah. They were the Muslim Ummah, the time of Prophet Musa, and before them as well, before Prophet Musa. So anything that's being addressed to them is by extension being addressed to the Muslim community of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we shouldn't just look at it and say, you know what, those Jews, they used to, say all these, they used to tell people to do good, but they wouldn't do good themselves. Well, there are Muslims who do that too. The lesson is not just to point fingers somewhere else, but it's to point fingers at ourselves to make sure we're not doing it. And the funny thing is, this verse is talking exactly about that. Saying, are you telling other people to do good, and you're saying, you should give sadaqah, but then you don't give any charity yourself. You shouldn't be gossiping. Don't talk bad about other people. And then 2 minutes later, you're seen in the corner talking bad about other people. You're going and doing things, you're telling other people not to do those things, and you're going and doing the exact same thing. And that's why it's very important that whenever we're going to be telling somebody else something, we have to really stop and reflect for a moment and say, are we doing those things as well? Do we fall into the same trap? Maybe instead of putting so much effort on correcting other people, we should focus on correcting ourselves as well. Now there's two things that happens here. One of them is that people will fall into one of two extremes. And Islam is never about being in the extreme. It's always about being in the middle, in the balance. One of the extremes is that people will say, you know what? I have so many faults. I have so much to work on myself. I'm never going to correct anybody ever again. No nasiha, I'm not going to give any advice to anyone. I'm just going to focus on myself. This is an extreme. It doesn't mean that when you see something wrong, you don't advise somebody, tell somebody something. What it means is you focus primarily on yourself, but you still point out a mistake here and there when you see it, because you also want to spread goodness to other people. This is one extreme. And the second extreme is somewhere along the lines and say, you know what if I keep falling into that same sin as well, and I'm working on it, and I'm constantly working on it, like gossiping about people. Many of us fall into gossiping about people. So you say, you know what, I'm never going to warn anybody else about gossiping because I end up doing it myself. Or I'm never going to warn somebody else about, you know what, you should read more Quran because I've not increased in my Quran reading or something like that. You do not need, you are not a hypocrite. The scholars of Islam say it is not hypocrisy if you are struggling to work on yourself, and while working on yourself, you still warn other people and give nasiha about the same thing. It is only hypocrisy if you are not working on yourself at all, and then you're telling other people to do something, and you have no desire, no real effort to put in changing yourself. Because that's a trick of shaitan. Shaitan will come and he'll tell you, you know what, you have not conquered that problem, and you've been working on it, and you're still not 100%. Until you reach 100% perfection in that one thing that you're talking to other people about, you're not going to say a word. Then you wouldn't say a word about anything, or most things. So don't fall into one of these two extremes, but always question your own intention and always focus primarily on yourself. Make sure you're giving more nasiha to yourself than you're giving to other people. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala purify and rectify our hearts. Ameen wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum.